Hey everyone, it's Scott Hansen from NFL Red Zone reminding you to watch Sportsballers, the podcast that gets you caught up on everything Washington sports and beyond.
Hello and welcome to episode 142 of the Sportsballers podcast. I'm Corey Puffett, joined as always by Eric Meyer and Evan Ash. We are back to our Wednesday schedule after a really fun show last week. We had a good number of people tune in live and join in the conversation as we broke down and reacted to the entire first round of the NFL draft. John Means of the Orioles just completed his first career complete game no-hitter. As we're getting started with the show, we'll get to that a little bit later in some other baseball news. But first, how are you guys doing? You guys there? Uh-oh, we're having some audio issues. So let me take a look and see what's going on. We checked this before the show and everything was good. So I don't know what's happening. I think it must be my Skype, as it always is. For some reason, Skype always seems to mess up on me. Eric is completely frozen, so here, let me do this. No shortage of technical difficulties for us on a week-by-week basis, it seems. And yeah, it sure is Skype. It is completely locked up. There we go. That should allow me to reopen it. And here we go. You guys there?
Yeah,
we
we're
didn't
here.
go anywhere.
All right. Well, we're back. I can hear you guys now. I don't know what happened. It seems that something with maybe starting the stream it just always seems to mess up my Skype. I don't know what that is about, but that's 3 weeks in a row now that we've had an issue at some point in the show with my Skype. Anyway, go back to where we were. How are you guys doing?
I'm doing great. This is tremendous news. The Orioles haven't thrown a solo no-hitter since 1969.
Holy cow.
Jim Palmer did it.
Nice.
Yeah. I'm like 99% thrilled and 1% frustrated the fact that the lone base runner reached on a strikeout. So that's...
Wait, what?
Yes.
That happened?
Yes.
So you were a drop throw strike away from a perfect game.
Yeah, it Means only faced 27 batters because the guy that reached base on the strikeout promptly got thrown out trying to steal second base. But yeah, the one base, like you look at the box score and you would think, wow, he threw a no-hitter because there's no runs, no hits, no errors, and no walks. But a runner reached base on a wild pitch, probably because Pedro Severino sucks and couldn't get the job done. But nevertheless, no-hitter's pretty damn exciting too.
Does he suck worse than Gary Sanchez?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Maybe. No, he's pretty bad.
We'll get to some more baseball stuff later, but last week we had a really fun show breaking down the first round of the NFL draft. We'll be talking about our reactions to our team's drafts on the whole a little bit later on. We'll also be talking some more about Aaron Rodgers. The beginning of that saga led right into the first round of the draft. We have a little bit more information that we'll delve into. But let's start in the NBA. We didn't talk at all about the NBA last week, and we don't have a whole lot to talk about this week. I'm sure Eric will have a little bit more next week when he hosts again, as he usually does. But this past week, LeBron had some things to say about the play-in tournament. We talked about how the play-in tournament is going to work. This was either 2 or 3 weeks ago that we talked about it, and I think it was 2 weeks ago. And Eric explained that basically the way it's going to work is that the 7 through 10 teams will play sort of a tournament, not exactly the bracket format that you would expect, where normally you'd think 7 versus 10, 8 versus 9, and the winners play each other. Instead, it'll be the 7 and 8 will play against each other. The winner is automatically into the playoffs, and then the 8 seed, or whichever team lost that 7-8 game, would play the winner of the 9-10 to discern who's going to get that 8th spot. Why? When we talked about it, it was a little bit wonky, a little weird, just because it's not something we're used to seeing. But I came out of it. I like it. I like that idea. I think that between the 7 and 8, one of them should definitely get in, and maybe even both. One getting in definitely should not preclude the other from getting in. And it seems ridiculous that if we just did a regular tournament, bracket tournament, the 9 and 10 could potentially end up in the playoffs. Like, that just doesn't make sense to me. So I like it if we're going to expand and allow other teams to have the opportunity. What did LeBron have to say about it, Eric?
Well, LeBron said whoever came up with that expletive should be fired. That's what he said. So he's not happy without that. Let me explain why. Because LeBron is going to have to play in the play-in tournament. That's why he's upset about this. It's a self-serving complaint, because LeBron couldn't have cared less about the play-in tournament until the Lakers started falling down the standings and are very realistically going to end up in the 7th seed, potentially playing Golden State or somebody like that in the 7-8 matchup. So that's why he's disappointed. He can say whatever he wants about any other reasons, but that's absolutely the cause here. He's not happy because it looks like his team is not as securely in the playoffs as he figured they would be.
So let me ask this. Is there any chance that the Lakers could fall to the 9 or the 10 seed?
No, the gap between 7 and 8 is pretty significant. I don't see them falling that far, but the Mavericks have moved ahead of them, and the Blazers are likely going to continue to stay ahead of them as well, because the Lakers have a little bit of a tough schedule to finish, and LeBron's not 100%. And we've seen how that affects the Lakers when he's not all there. They don't win. And Anthony Davis is still coming off of injury. He hasn't been super effective since his return a couple weeks ago. They're probably going to end up as the 7th seed.
Yeah, I've got the standings pulled up here. The Lakers are tied with Dallas, and they're only a game ahead of Portland. And then Golden State and Memphis are 3.5 games behind Portland. So the Lakers are right in the mix. They're currently in 6th place, but they're right in the mix to fall into 7. And I completely agree with you, Eric. LeBron's comments are only because his team might have to play in the play-in tournament.
Well, and that's sort of why I asked, is there any chance they could fall below that? Because part of me wishes that there was a chance for that, just to see, does his tune change if they end up as the 9 team?
They're not going to end up as.
So it's kind of a shame that we won't be able to kind of test that theory. But I mean, the key here though is, let's say they end up playing Golden State in the 7-8 game, and Golden State beats them, because Golden State has been playing a little bit better of late. I've gathered. I don't know how much better, but well enough that they could very well win that game. The Lakers are not out of it. They get to play whoever wins the 9-10 game to still get in. And honestly, if you can't beat the 9 or 10 seed after losing to the 8 seed, you don't deserve to be in the playoffs. Yes. So yeah. I get that this is wonky. I get that this is weird. It's not normal. It's all those things. And you can argue all you want that the 9 and 10 seed teams don't deserve to be in the conversation either, because quite frankly, they don't. But neither do the 7 or 8 seeds deserve to be in it if they can't beat the 9 and 10 seeds. So, we're splitting hairs about 4 teams, none of whom are likely contenders. I mean, the Lakers, I guess, could get hot if they get healthy. I don't know if there's really much chance of them getting healthy right now at this point in the season. But the 7 and 8 teams are not really contenders, generally speaking. So why are we even arguing about this? the difference between expanding to 10 teams, as much as this can be considered expanding, and reducing it to a 16 playoffs, to me, there's no difference. Except for the potential revenue.
Well, that's what this is about. I mean, you've got teams like the Washington Wizards who 2 months ago looked like they should go into the tank, but right now they're solidly in the 10 spot in the Eastern Conference, and they're playing with the intent of participating in the play-in tournament and trying to get into the draw of 8 teams in the Eastern Conference. So you've got a lot more teams competing hard to try to stay alive in this, whereas normally you would have a lot more teams completely disinterested at this part of the season. There's only a handful of teams that are completely in the tank right now, and I think that's good for basketball. And the NBA sees that. It makes the regular season more exciting even for some of these mediocre teams or some of these young teams who, yeah, they're not contenders, but there's value in having a young team get some playoff experience, and this gives another avenue for certain teams like the Pelicans who look like they're toast, but they're an example of a team that would definitely benefit from playing in a postseason format. So they're absolutely going to chase that 10 or that 9 spot and try to maybe play their way into the tournament.
The Wizards didn't look like they were going into the tank. They looked like they were going into the G League. They were so awful. I still don't know why their coach hasn't been fired, because all they've done is lose and lose and lose. And he's like, oh, well, our level of effort on defense is just unacceptable, but I keep accepting it every single night. So
the other thing that I would say on this front, though, is, normally when a league talks about expanding playoffs, I'm against it, right? I mean, you guys have known me for a long time. I'm almost always against expanding playoffs. I don't, I've accepted that the NFL is now 7 teams per conference. I don't like it, and I wasn't a fan at the beginning. 6 teams, I think, is enough. I didn't like the idea of baseball expanding to 5 teams. Hated the idea of them expanding to 8 teams last year, and I'm glad that was only a 1-year thing and that it's not permanent. We're back to 5 teams this year. I've come to accept the 1-game play-in into the divisional round. I'm fine with it. I don't really hate it anymore. Won't say I love it, but it's fine. But as you expand playoffs and things like that, not only does it become easier for leagues to continue that expansion, the way that we're seeing with basketball going to 10 teams, we could see football go to 8 teams at some point soon. But it also it decreases my care about the expansion, not because the expansion suddenly is acceptable and a good thing, but because once you've already opened it up too much to teams, why does it matter? Having 8 teams in the playoffs is already 50% of the league. At this point, they could just make both conferences in the NBA allow 16 teams in the playoffs, and it wouldn't make a difference to me. We could just let everybody in the playoffs, and it would make 0 difference to me compared to the 8 teams that already let in. 8 teams was already too many. And that's really kind of the problem here to me is, who cares? Who cares that they're expanding to 10? It doesn't move the needle for me one way or the other.
I agree with you, Corey. My issue with the NBA, their previous playoff structure, is it hasn't been punitive enough for the teams that just barely squeak in. Those 7 and 8 seeds just get basically the same shot as the 1 and 2 seeds do. Obviously, they're probably not going to win, and they have to play 4 out of 7 games on the road. But it wasn't enough of a penalty, in my opinion, to finish in 7th place and go to the playoffs in the NBA. Now, if you finish in 7th place, your season's on the line basically that night. That first game, you get to play the 8th seed, and if you lose the next game, you could be going home after that.
Yeah.
I really appreciate that. They're finally bringing something like this to the NBA.
Yeah, letting the 9 and 10 teams into the mix is kind of ridiculous. But like you said, they
only get 1 game.
As much as there's kind of that negative to it, you also get a big positive that I think offsets it, in that the 7 and 8 teams are no longer just in, right? They are in that win or go home situation. So I agree 100% with that.
And we love the NCAA tournament with the single elimination. We get that in basketball now.
Yeah.
Eric, when are these games? I want to watch them. When does this actually start? Because it's May 5th, and the basketball playoffs still haven't started yet.
Yeah, normally we'd be in this well into the second round for basketball postseason.
Seems like by now, at this point, the basketball playoffs and the baseball playoffs will be going on at the same time. The NBA season's just going on and on and on forever.
Well, the NBA season actually didn't start until December 22nd, so this is a pretty tight 5 months season that they're turning around.
Yeah.
I know that I'm pretty sure the normal 8-team tournaments for each conference starts on May 22nd. So I'm imagining that
like May 19th, May 20th,
yeah,
somewhere
probably
in that
the
area.
preceding days, because I'm pretty sure the regular season ends, I think, on the 16th. So in that 6-day window, probably Corey's probably right, 19th, 20th. I think that sounds about right for these playing games. But Evan, you mentioned it right there. This creates a little bit of that college feel to it that a lot of people really like. That single elimination. You got 48 minutes to decide the fate of your season. If you win, you survive in advance. If you lose, you go home. That's something you don't see in the NBA. Normally, it's like, okay, you got a 2-week series.
Got to wait for a Game 7.
Yeah, exactly. A Game 7 is, and that only happens occasionally, especially in the early rounds of the tournament. It's usually 4 or 5 game teams just getting rolled. Or if you see a tight series, it's like between the 4 and the 5 who are basically just duking it out to see who's going to get rolled by the 1 seed. So
yeah,
it creates a level of intrigue, and there is legitimate interest, like I said, for teams to get into the play-in tournament from the 9 or 10 spots. So it enhances interest, and I don't think it matters at all. Yeah, a 10 seed doesn't deserve to be in the playoffs. But if they duke it out and they beat a 9 and then they beat a 7 or an 8 to get in, sure, they can have their shot at the 1 seed and get their asses kicked. What's the problem? Like, that's not going to hurt my feelings. There's no way a 10 seed is beating a 1 in a 7-game series. That's just not going to happen. And if that happens, it's on the 1 seed for not being able to beat. They get an easier opponent, so they can't complain. There's no way a team's just going to go 30-50 and suddenly turn into an NBA champion. That's not how it ever has worked.
Yeah,
wow.
but the thing is, the one of the big points that I'm kind of alluding to here is we could get even crazier, and it wouldn't make much of a difference to me over this. We could have the 1 and the 2 play against each other. Winner gets in. Loser has to play the winner of the 3 and 4. Winner gets in. Loser plays the winner of the 4 of the 5 and 6. Winner gets in. Loser plays the winner of the 7 versus 8, and so on until you have your 8-team tournament.
Why not? Sounds like the Big East tournament or something.
Why not? If the number 1 seed keeps losing, either they're eventually going to beat one of the really crummy teams, or they're going to end up being out, in which case, that's hilarious.
Well, having the 1 seed getting bounced is not hilarious for NBA ratings in most situations, but the reason why that's never going to happen is because the players aren't going to go for that. That's too many games. But I do agree with the idea that the 7 and 8 seeds, they should be encouraged to play for the 6 seed or above. Like, that's something that's beneficial. Where I realize the Western Conference is loaded, but that's just the way the NBA is currently structured and has been for the last 20 years. That's just a coincidence. You can't sit there and say, well, we're in the West, so being the 7th seed in the West means we're actually a really good team. Well, tough luck. You got to be in the top 6. Sorry.
You have to be I mean, it's a zero-sum game in a league like this. It doesn't matter that you're a good team. You have to be better than the other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. So, if there's 6 other teams that are better than you and you're in 7th place, but you say you're really good, that is too bad. You need to beat them.
It should be noted for the record that this is the second time a superstar has complained about the play-in tournament, and it's also the second time that superstar was looking like the guy that was going to have to play in the 7-seed game.
Who was the other one?
Luka Doncic complained earlier this season when it looked like the Mavericks were going to be stuck in the 7th seed because they had a slow start due to all the COVID stuff. They had a lot of players missing, and so they were getting hot.
You picked Luka to win MVP, and
that didn't help. Yeah, it did jinx them a little bit, but they came out and they started like crap, and they got hot and started playing better once they got their guys back. But with the West being as stacked as it was, the reality was they weren't going to climb the standings until the Lakers got hurt and they started falling down the standings, and made it a very distinct possibility that the Mavericks would get out of that 7 spot. And so now the Lakers are looking like the team that might get stuck there, and LeBron's not happy about that.
maybe LeBron should get the Lakers to play better and win games.
You would think that would be the goal, is just to win the games, but apparently it's complaining season. And I hate to tell LeBron this, but like you guys said, if you can't come up with the onions to beat mediocre teams in the Western Conference, you're going to get steamrolled by the best teams anyway. So you can't sit there and say you were robbed of a chance to compete for a championship.
Robbed of a chance to compete? That's what you're doing every single day.
I got a little nervous there when you said I hate to be the one to tell LeBron this. I thought you were going in a different direction. The Laura Ingram direction.
I was not going to tell him to shut up and dribble if that's what you were implying.
Good.
That was not in the plans.
It went through my mind briefly. I was like, okay.
No, I would not do that. I don't mind hearing LeBron's opinion, but I will tell LeBron, or I will mention when I think LeBron is wrong here. And I think he's clearly self-serving. Yeah. And I think that this is good for the NBA. I think this is a better situation. It's weird. It's different. It allows even crappier teams to compete, but they're competing against each other. That's the thing. It's not like they're getting a shot at the 1 seed. They got to earn that by beating up on the other people that are down there with them. It's a slog.
Corey, you also mentioned the baseball playoffs. We've had 7 Padres-Dodgers games. Those games were amazing, weren't they?
Oh, yeah.
One of those teams is going to the wild card game. So that just adds a sense of urgency to every regular season matchup.
Yeah.
Hey, we have to beat them. It doesn't matter how good they are. We have to beat them, because otherwise we could be toast in a one-game situation.
I can personally guarantee that if it ends up being the 7-seed Lakers versus the 8-seed Warriors, and it's LeBron and Anthony Davis versus Stephen Curry in a one-game, not quite winner-go-home situation, but for the fate of your postseason type of situation, the ratings are going to be through the roof. And that guy that LeBron wants fired for coming up with that brilliant idea, he's getting a raise.
Right, yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. All right, so let's talk real briefly. Kentucky Derby happened on Saturday. Medina Spirit won. Evan, you I'm sure watched it.
I did not watch it.
Oh.
No, I was at Dollywood on Saturday.
That's right, you were at Dollywood, and I was getting this gnarly bruise on my arm on Saturday.
From what?
Shooting skeet. That is from a shotgun barreling back into my arm 50 times over the course of the afternoon.
No bruise on mine, sorry.
Lucky you. Either you're better at holding it or you're just more used to it. I don't know.
It's probably a little bit of column A, a little bit of column B, because I've shot 12 gauges before, but I know that was a new experience for you and I think Sean's brother as well.
Yeah,
and that's why you two came away with the most collateral damage, because it's a learning experience.
Yeah, it was fun though. I hit 20% of my shots.
Yes, and you hit the hardest stuff.
I know. Bizarre. I hit all the hard ones. The ones that the guy, like the trapper, or was he trapper? Was that what he's called?
I don't know.
I don't remember. Anyway,
Are there live animals? Why would there be a trapper?
Right. I don't remember what the word was. But anyway, the guy was with us, like, keeping score and giving us tips and stuff. The ones that he was saying were the hardest ones were the ones I was hitting. The ones that were supposed to be easy and, like, meant to get my confidence up, I was missing all of those.
Yeah, I was feeling a little bad because I was like, damn, Corey missed his first, like, handful of shots.
Well, I missed the first 6. I missed all of them in my first. In fact, I think I missed all of them in my first two stations.
Yeah, and the dude said it's only going to get harder from here, and I was like, oh man, that's brutal. But then the hardest one was that super far out B house that was moving across, and you were the only one that hit it, and you hit it twice.
Yeah, I hit 2 of 3 of those ones.
I was like, what the hell's going on here? So I stopped feeling bad for you at that point. I was like, okay, Corey just needs to learn how to shoot the ones that aren't moving as much.
Yeah. So anyway, brief aside, none of us saw it live, I guess. But Evan, I'm assuming you probably saw a replay of the Kentucky Derby.
No, but I did see.
Then why did you put it in our
I
sheet?
just wanted to mention that this horse won the Kentucky Derby, and the Preakness is Saturday, May 15th in Baltimore. I did see a clip of the end of the race, and it looked like an exciting finish. But
none of us saw it, and yet it ends up on our sheet. Moving on. I've got a question for you guys. I saw a story in ESPN today. The Mountain West Conference has become the latest college football conference to eliminate intra-conference transfer rules. So basically, just going with the NCAA rules that say that all athletes can transfer one time during their collegiate careers without sitting out a season of competition. The previous rules in the Mountain West had been that athletes who transferred within the conference would have to sit out an additional season on top of any that they might be required to by NCAA rules, right? So if it was their first time transferring, they just have to sit out one season because the NCAA doesn't require any. And if they were doing their second transfer and it was inside the conference, they'd have to sit out 2 seasons, one for the league and one for the NCAA rules. They've done away with that, joining the ACC, the American Athletic Conference, and the Mid-American Conference, which had previously done the same thing. And I'm just curious to get your guys' thoughts on what should be the rule regarding transfers. Should the Big Ten follow suit? Should the SEC follow suit? Should the NCAA just get rid of transfer sit-out rules completely?
I think a player should be able to transfer wherever, whenever they want.
As many times as they want?
Yes, because it should be a complete free-for-all. Because the coaches and the ADs who are getting paid to do this, they can just up and leave whenever they want to. So you mean to tell me the players can't transfer? If we're having people, I mean, let's not pretend that this is about school at all, because it's not. Like the academic portion of it is, I mean, almost completely unrelated, and I think it's ridiculous to say that it is. Like, oh, this guy's not going to class. I'm sorry, or who is going to class here?
So I agree with you, Evan. I have the same opinion. I think that athletes in college should be able to transfer as many times as they want to, where they want to, and all of that. I do believe that. I'm curious to get Eric's thoughts, if he agrees with that or not. But I have sort of an understanding of some of the arguments against it that are not specifically to do with academics, right? So I'll kind of, we'll see where Eric falls on this. But if he's in agreement with us, I might kind of challenge and see if we can, come with the answers to those issues that are raised against it. But Eric, what do you think?
Well, the reason why this rule exists had nothing to do with academics. It has everything to do with the NCAA wanting teams to have some sort of continuity, and so they to want to discourage kids from transferring. That's what this is about, because most people probably don't want to sit a year, and they don't burn a year of eligibility, but they still have to sit around a year instead of playing, which is just a waste of everybody's time, which is why the rule's in place to disincentivize that. But I just don't think that that's just, because I think that the scholarships are only 1-year deals. That's the thing. A 4-year scholarship is really a 1-year scholarship that's renewed every year if the team wants to. And so if the team can get rid of you, if the school can dump you, like your yesterday's news, because of reasons, then I don't see any reason why you wouldn't be able to walk after a year. Now, in the middle of the season, I don't know. That seems a little weird, but we're not talking about that. We're talking about in between seasons and those type of transfers. And so I get why the NCAA doesn't like it, but I also think that the NCAA doesn't like a lot of things, like paying the players. It doesn't mean I'm going to support them for that. I don't care if there's some type of negative fallout for the quality of play. I understand that that's a reality of this. But there's right and wrong, and this is the right thing to do, is to allow these kids to go where they want to go.
Yeah, I mean,
if it was any other student, couldn't they just transfer whenever they want?
Absolutely.
Right? Like, if a guy wants to, if a regular student is at North Carolina and wants to transfer to Duke, I'm sure that's fine. I don't know why you do that, but, and then if they want to transfer back, then that's fine too. Just, it should be wide open.
So here's probably one of the biggest, maybe, arguments against it. And it's not so much to do with the athlete It's more about, wouldn't this open up the door to coaches from other programs meddling and reaching out to students on other teams and trying to get them to transfer away from the school they're at?
Isn't that called recruiting?
So, yes, but no. I mean, you talk about
want to go to UGA
in professional leagues. You have rules. You have like anti-tampering rules where players and coaches cannot, encourage players from other teams to, leave and sign with them in the off season or anything like that, right? Like there are anti-tampering rules like that. And should there not be something similar in the NCAA?
Well, that's fine to have anti-tampering rules, but that doesn't preclude the idea of transferring immediately. I think that you can do both because, tampering is against the rules in the NBA, but that doesn't mean you have to sit out of here if you want to change teams as a free agent. You're allowed to go to a new team without penalty. It's just that the teams...
Ask LeBron about this.
Yeah, the teams are not allowed to recruit you while you're under contract with another team or even mention that they want to have you on the team.
Once you enter the transfer portal... I feel like...
Yeah, it should be fair game. That's what the transfer portal is for. It's basically the players saying, I'm available. And so that's when the recruiting of them can come in. But if anybody's caught tampering with players, they should be punished accordingly. But that doesn't mean that we have to maintain archaic transfer rules.
Yeah, I mean, the thing here is... let's think about who is transferring. Generally speaking, these are not... it's not your starting quarterback. Generally speaking, it's not your starting wide receivers and your starting linebackers. It's not generally guys who are getting a lot of playing time unless there's a big rift between them and the coach, or or their coach leaves and they don't like the new regime that's coming in, right? That would be really the only time that you would see a player that's getting a lot of playing time look into transferring, right? Because most of these guys, if they're getting playing time, they want to stay. Here's the thing. When you have a 17, 18-year-old kid leaving high school, going to college, and they declare a major as a freshman, are they locked into that major for 4 years? Of course not. That would be ridiculous because they're kids. They don't really know what they want to do yet. They might have a sense. They might know what they like in that moment, but they might find some other interests while they're at school. They're going to go through the process of going to classes. They're going to find their interests. And, by the end of their second year, they hopefully have locked down for sure what their major is going to be, because if they change it again after that, it's probably going to extend their time in college. But you give them that time to figure out what feels right, what pool they belong in. The same should be the case for athletes. You go through this recruitment process and you do your best to find the situations that's going to be right for you, the coach that you like, the college where you feel like you're going to have the best chance to compete for a starting position and get playing time. But then you get there and things don't turn out the way that you thought they would. They don't turn out the way maybe even that the school thought they would, right? The coach doesn't have to be out and out lying to you for you to not end up getting the playing time you thought you were going to get. So let them transfer. Let them go to a place where they can get more playing time. Most of the time, the guys who are transferring are not the ones that are going to end up being professional prospects and going, in the 7 rounds of the NFL draft. Most of the time. Yes, you'll get your Baker Mayfields. Yes, you'll get your Justin Fields. But those are generally the exception, not the rule, as far as when you look at the entire transfer portal.
But there are enough situations where it's not simply just a one-off. I mean, Jalen Hurts made himself a pro because he transferred.
It's not a one-off, but it's not anywhere near the majority.
But it is enough because there aren't that many pro prospects anyway. And this adds to the point of why this is actually good for the NCAA, because think about Justin Fields as an example. Imagine if he had stayed at Georgia. Then we never would have seen him play. He would have been stuck behind Jake from State Farm for his entire life. And then same thing with Baker Mayfield, as he got benched for Davis Webb. Excuse me. Nice job, Cliff. way to go.
Davis Webb.
Exactly.
So
I thought he got benched for Patrick Mahomes.
No, Mahomes came later. Davis Webb was the starter that replaced Baker Mayfield, and then Patrick Mahomes replaced Davis Webb. But my point
and
being,
didn't play all that well. Thanks again, Cliff.
Why does Cliff Kingsbury have a job? This is unbelievable.
This is what I've been saying.
You can't
You're
see
preaching
one
to
of
the
best
freaking
quarterbacks of all time,
choir.
and a Heisman winner is better than Davis Webb. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, but this adds to the point where whether it's because of coaching stupidity or just roster depth, like think about the Alabama situation where you had Tua and you had Jalen Hurts, and Tua was clearly better than Jalen Hurts, but Jalen Hurts was still one of the 10 best college quarterbacks in the country, even when he was with Alabama. He goes to a new school, gets to play. You get more talent distributed, you get more interest.
Yeah, and to that point, the other thing that I'll say there, Eric, is yes, you have those guys that they're not really one-offs. Guys like Baker Mayfield, Justin Fields, right? They happen, but I don't think that necessarily counters my point either, because these are guys who, when they transferred, people were not looking at them as, oh, that's a pro prospect, they're going to be in the NFL. They became that ultimately because they transferred, right? Like, so this is not a situation where, oh, these guys who are about, they're going to go to the NFL in a year or two, and we know that, and they're going to leave their program just because. No, the guys who that ends up being the case for, they're leaving the program because their coaches didn't recognize that, didn't appreciate that, but they feel confident that their talent is that, and they need to go somewhere where they can show the pro scouts that they are that.
Yeah, that's the point. I mean, again, Joe Burrow's not the number 1 overall pick in the draft 2 years ago, or last year, I guess, if he stays at Ohio State.
And sits behind Dwayne Haskins.
Even playing football anymore.
Wasn't he behind Haskins?
Yeah,
Haskins and somebody else.
Oh, they had J.T. Barrett for seemingly 7 years. And J.T. Barrett was a really good player, so I didn't mind seeing Burrow sit behind him. But Joe Burrow was then passed over by Dwayne Haskins, who took the starting job. So he said, I'm going to go somewhere else. And he made the right call.
The national championship and the Heisman Trophy.
Exactly.
Meanwhile, what's Dwayne Haskins doing right now?
He is a backup quarterback for the Steelers, who also just signed Mason Rudolph to an extension this week.
There you go.
Alrighty. That is quite a quarterback room.
Yeah, so again, the whole idea of being anti-transfer is, it seems like it's almost like the teams that want to just hoard the talent, because you look at other guys. Alvin Kamara transferred. He was at Alabama, and he ended up at Tennessee. Now, he ended up playing for Butch Jones, so there was a bit of a trade-off there. But the point is that players should be allowed to seek other opportunities, and it makes the game better, I think. Like this idea that we have to have these players because we recruited them, damn it, and they committed to come here, and it's not right that other people get to take advantage of us not playing our best guys? What are you trying to say?
The coach can just up and leave whenever he wants, right? Lane Kiffin coaching at Tennessee for 15 minutes. Like, what? What if the coach gets fired or something? Meanwhile, the players are stuck there.
Have you seen it's from a few years ago, but there's the post that Lane Kiffin basically had a coaching career in reverse.
Yes. That was great.
Oh, man.
So let's go ahead and segue from that to a little bit of NFL discussion, talking about the draft. And let's go ahead and start with Justin Fields, just briefly. Last week, and correct me if I'm wrong, Evan, but I kind of got the sense that you were a little bit lukewarm on the Bears Fields situation, him going to the Bears, whether that's a good spot for him, whether it was a good pick for the Bears there. The fantasy footballers this past week love that pick for both sides. They love it for Justin Fields and they love it for the Bears. And they talked about Matt Nagy has not really had his own quarterback until now. He was really kind of given Mitch Trubisky. That was not his decision to jump up in the draft to take him. He came in after
Matt
that.
Nagy be the Bears coach?
What's that?
Ain't nobody forced Matt Nagy into being the Bears coach.
No, but you gotta take the job that's offered to you, and that was the job that was offered to him. So, he made the decision to draft him. This is a guy that you have predicted correctly, I might add, to be the NFL head coach of the year. But I don't know.
Coached well that year.
Yeah, he did. What do you guys think about Justin Fields with the Bears?
I like it for Justin Fields, and I love it for the Bears.
Okay.
The Bears haven't had a good quarterback in, 75 years or something at this point. And then in light of the Aaron Rodgers situation, Justin Fields might be the best quarterback in this division. It could just completely flip basically overnight. Yeah. They go from the MVP to Justin Fields.
Yeah, I mean, depending on what happens in Green Bay, it's looking increasingly like Aaron Rodgers is out, one way or the other. So it likely is going to come down to who his replacement is. But
I think Fields was the second best quarterback in this draft class. That's nothing against Zach Wilson, but Fields was really good.
I still think that I take Wilson over Fields, but as far as value goes, where the Bears got him,
this was amazing.
This is the best value pick in the draft at quarterback. This is better value than Trevor Lawrence at 1, as far as I'm concerned. I don't think that there is enough of a gap between Wilson and Fields to make it make sense for the Bears to get him. What was it, 13th overall, 11 picks behind Zach Wilson? Is that right?
I think he went 11th.
11th, so 9 picks after. Still, I mean, it's crazy.
I would agree with you that it was a better value pick, except for the fact that the Bears had to trade up to do it. So they had to give up a little extra to get to that spot. So in a vacuum, yes, Justin Fields at 11 feels like a better value pick than Trevor Lawrence at 1. I understand that, but when you have to give up picks, but that doesn't mean it's not worth it. Because Justin Fields has franchise quarterback, perennial Pro Bowl upside. And that's what you're really drafting every quarterback on, is the upside potential. Everybody's looking for a franchise QB. Justin Fields could end up struggling and just being a bust. And you move on and you try again. That's how this works. Mm-hmm. But if you're able to land the guy who's going to be the guy for a decade plus, you've got to do it. I mean, that's how you function in the NFL. We talked about this last week. There's an episode of Game of Thrones where they say when you play the Game of Thrones, either you win or you die. When you do NFL quarterbacking, either you find the guy or you get the hell out. There's no in between. You can't win without a franchise quarterback long term. You got to try to find the guy, and that's what the Bears did. And Justin Fields has just as good of a chance to be that guy for everybody in the draft, with the exception of probably Trevor Lawrence.
And when you're looking for the guy and you find him, it doesn't matter what it costs to get him.
Absolutely.
Yes. I like
having a good quarterback over not is so extreme.
And I like the landing spot for Fields as well. He's without a doubt better than Trey Lance and Mac Jones. The 49ers probably should have taken him, but you look at the 49ers CEO today or yesterday said that he wouldn't. It would be okay if they see Trey Lance sit behind Jimmy Garoppolo for 2 years. Like 2 years? 2 years? The guy you drafted 3rd overall, you're going to be okay. You traded up to pick him 3rd overall, and you would be okay if he has to sit behind Jimmy G for 2 years? Are you kidding me? And
he needs to play week 1.
If they had picked Justin Fields and that had happened, I would have been irate. With Trey Lance, it's one of those things where okay, well then that was really stupid of you to trade up and pick him 3rd overall.
Yes.
But as far as just the Jimmy G versus Trey Lance, just the two of them in a vacuum, I can see that. Sure, because Trey Lance, honestly, to me, not that good. I talked about this on draft day. I said I don't think that he's that good. I think he's one of the worst first round graded quarterbacks I've ever seen come into the draft. And I'm very much including Mitch Trubisky. So wow. I did not like that pick 3rd overall. I didn't like it.
Tell us how you really feel.
Really? I do not like it, Sam.
He's one of the worst players of all time.
No. First round graded, absolutely. So if that had happened to Justin Fields, I would have been really frustrated for him. I would have been frustrated as a fan because this is a good quarterback who deserves to get a chance to start right off the bat. And with the Bears, he gets that. Because who else is going to start? Andy Dalton? Please.
QB1, baby. QB1.
So I like it for him. I don't know if there were any other picks from the first round that you maybe wanted to talk more about today than we talked about last week, but I just figured the segue, we were already talking about Justin Fields as it relates to the transfer rules, talk about him just briefly. But I definitely want to talk a little bit about the Ravens and the football team's drafts as a whole, because last week we only we were there for the first round. We were with our audience live through that whole first round. It was a lot of fun. Thank you again to everybody who joined us and commented, guys like Sam Martin and Alex Mayo and Anthony Battle. I had a couple of students who tuned in and commented, which was great. Definitely love the fan interaction. But we didn't really get to watch a lot of the other 6 rounds live, and we definitely have not got a chance to talk about our reactions to those picks. So I'd really like to get into some of that. Evan, we'll start with you and your Ravens. In the first round, you guys got a wide receiver. Thank God for you guys. Rashad Bateman out of Minnesota.
Oh my goodness.
You also got
We'll see. I mean, you gotta see what happens.
Well, he might end up being bad, but at least they went and got a wide receiver.
Yeah, they also got Marquise Brown a couple years ago.
Yeah, but I mean, considering your guys, the Ravens GM was talking this past week about, I'm so just shocked and offended that people say that we don't have wide receivers. And you're sitting there like, oh, does that mean they're not going to get a wide receiver? Oh, no.
Did you believe that?
I wasn't sure. I wasn't sure.
That was a rope-a-dope for sure.
But
no, it wasn't a rope-a-dope.
In hindsight, it was a rope-a-dope. But
no, it's blatant, obvious. Like, this is nonsense. Just ignore what he's saying, right? Because it's a results-oriented business, and the results have shown that the Ravens wide receivers haven't been very good. So obviously, you need to replace them. That's the bottom line. We
also got to see you guys pick an edge rusher out of Penn State in the first round, Odafe Owe. The third round, you guys got a guard from your favorite college, Evan.
Oh,
the little UGA, Ben Cleveland, nicknamed Big Country. Talk to me a little about him and any of the other picks you guys got that you'd like to
well, I mean, discuss. I want to discuss those 3. Those are the main guys because they address the Ravens' biggest needs, in my opinion, was wide receiver, pass rush, and offensive line. With Marshall Yonder retiring and with Orlando Brown Jr. getting traded to the Chiefs, especially with the Ravens being a run-first kind of team, you gotta have an offensive line. Like they're the most important. They're the most important guys on the field, other than the quarterback himself. Don't forget how the season ended with Lamar Jackson in concussion protocol because he got clobbered because the offensive line just opened and let everybody through. So, that's critical to have a good offensive line. This guy Ben Cleveland. He's just one of those big, nasty kind of dudes. If I'm a team that plays the Ravens, I already hate him, which is just great. He's
Don't you love having those kinds of players on your team?
Yes. Like I would be a huge Hines Ward fan if he played for the Ravens, but he didn't. Like, I can't stand this guy. So, he seems to have a bit of a nasty streak to him, which I love, especially out of an offensive lineman. It's too bad he went to that school in Athens, but welcome to the flock. We're on the same side now. Let's see, Rashad Bateman. I think I talked about this when he was picked live last week. Be sure to check out all 4.5 hours of that podcast if you're listening to this one. I like the pick. He's got good hands. He's a good route runner. I don't have my little notebook here, but I said all that stuff last week. Odafe Owe, I was wrong about him. During the draft, I had some concerns about his 0 sacks this past season at Penn State, but that was that was, I guess, ignorant of me. That was lazy scouting of me, right?
Are you just saying that now as a fan of the team that drafted him?
Probably, but
like have you actually seen any new film that has changed your mind about this?
Yes, because like I saw what he could do, and I looked a little deeper. This guy is a physical freak, an absolute offensive line wrecking machine. And it just didn't show up in the sack column. But that doesn't mean he didn't cause any pressure. Doesn't mean he didn't hit any quarterbacks. He just didn't get any sacks. So, and he's got a lot of upside because he's tremendously athletic and he's good against the run, which has been a sneaky issue for the Ravens the past couple of years. Their edge run defense, aside from the matchups with the Titans. Nobody's really talked about the Ravens' run defense not being as good as it should be because they've just been blowing everybody out and the other team has to pass all the time. But you haven't really had that good edge run defender off the top of my head since Jarrett Johnson, who was really an underrated Ravens player.
Can't say I remember that name.
Oh, God, love JJ. He was a grinder.
Gruden grinder?
I don't think he won Gruden grinder, but he was that type of guy. Just wasn't really famous, but really good at setting the edge, really physical in the trenches. In the 2011 game against the Steelers, Hines Ward was going out for a pass in the flat, and JJ just he turned his head and looked like, ooh, I could hit him right now. Then bang! Nailed him. It was amazing.
Any other thoughts on Rashad Bateman that you didn't share last week during the draft show?
I don't have any new thoughts. I like the pick. Hopefully he's ready for high expectations. But the expectations aren't going to be that high because, as long as you're better than the guys we've drafted in the past, just catch the ball in third down, please. All right, when it's 3rd and 10 in Pittsburgh.
Well, if you remember, this is the guy who in 2019, remember he opted out in 2020, but in 2019, every single time that he was targeted on a slot or dig route, he got a first down.
Oh, got to move those chains, especially in this Ravens offense, which is a grind you into dust offense. Moving the chains,
or at least every time he caught the ball on those routes. I don't know if it was every time he was targeted, but yeah. So he was very good. Very good.
That means he knows where the sticks are.
Yes.
Marquise Brown looking at you.
He also has really good sideline awareness. So he knows where the sticks are. He knows where the boundaries are. So that's good. Oweh and Cleveland were both picks that Baltimore took with selections that they got in their trade from Kansas City. Other picks that you guys got include a cornerback out of Southern Methodist, Brandon Stevens, with a compensatory pick in the 3rd round. You guys took another wide receiver in the 4th round, Tylan Wallace of Oklahoma State. In the 5th round, you took Sean Wade, a cornerback out of Ohio State. And then in the 5th round, you had 2 picks. You got another edge rusher out of Notre Dame, Dalen Hayes, and fullback Ben Mason out of Michigan. So let's talk football team. Eric, you and me, our team. Positions of need we talked about last week. Linebacker and offensive line were really the big ones. Certainly, can use help in other places, but those were really the big needs. And first 2 picks, we tackled those issues. In the 1st round, we took Jamin Davis out of Kentucky. We both liked that pick. There were a couple other guys, or at least one other linebacker that I liked more than him at first glance, but the difference between them, not that substantial, so happy with that pick. And then in the 2nd round, Sam Cosmi, an offensive tackle out of Texas, is who we went after. So right out the gate, made sure that we hit on the linebacker and offensive line needs. In the 3rd round, we had a couple of picks. One we got from San Francisco. It was the 10th pick in the round. We took a cornerback out of Minnesota, Benjamin St. Juste, who I'm not really familiar with. But the interesting thing is that with our 2nd pick in the 3rd round, we took De'Ami Brown, a wide receiver out of North Carolina, who I had actually watched film on because he was a guy that I looked at as a a potential first round but likely second round pick, and he fell to us, just into the back half of the third round. He's a major deep threat, great speed, who still has pretty good footwork on curls that can let him take advantage of the softer coverage that he demands because of his speed. The only negative I had on him is that in tight coverage, his hands are a little bit questionable. He's not necessarily going to come down with a lot of those contested catches. But that's something that, you can get into the weight room and work on.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I think that they did a good job of addressing the needs that we discussed last Thursday, except for one, and it's the big one, it's the quarterback position.
Yeah.
But to be fair to them, they had limited opportunities to do so. The only one that was really worth targeting was Justin Fields, but they would have had to trade up, similar to how the Bears did. And obviously, we're not in the war room with everybody and finding out who's willing to trade, who's willing to do this or that, what the Bears offered versus what the team offered to move up for them, if that even happened. So I can't really knock them too hard because they would have had to make pretty big moves in order to get in position to do that, with the Bears being so aggressive to get up into the earlier part of the first round to make that pick.
Yeah, exactly. I don't think it would have made much sense for us to take a flyer on a quarterback later in the draft because the good quarterbacks were taken. And honestly, if we had to give up a bunch to move up to get a Justin Fields, yeah, we talk about it with the Bears. It's probably worth it. It's important that you go after that guy. But we have two quarterbacks, one of whom is completely unproven in Taylor Heineke, but has shown enough that he deserves a chance to compete for the starting spot. And another guy who, has proven himself to be very inconsistent in Ryan Fitzpatrick, but we went and got him in free agency. And if one of the good quarterbacks wasn't going to fall to us, why not focus on other positions of need? Go with, the better of those two this year and worry about trying to get a quarterback next year. That was kind of my feeling on that.
Yeah, it's just a tough year with the quarterback position being what it was because this year we had what I considered 4 pretty good first-round prospects, the exception being McCorkle. I didn't like him, and I was glad that Washington didn't trade up to pick him. I would have lost my mind if they had done that.
A fan of Michael McCorkle Jones?
Not a huge fan. I said earlier the only reason why he was a first round pick was because he had the white A with the crimson surrounding it. I mean, let's be real. This guy was one of the guys who didn't transfer because he knew his only hope of being a pro was being carried by a great squad. If he transfers to a school where he has to be the guy, he flounders. So let's just be honest with what Mac Jones is. So I'm glad that Washington didn't make great strides to go pick him. I'm glad that they said, okay, the best quarterbacks are gone. It is what it is. Let's focus on building our team out from around them. It's disappointing, obviously, because normally draft classes don't have that many high-level prospects. But who knows? I mean, there's always an opportunity to do something, especially with quarterbacks seemingly being more open to hitting the ejector seat on their teams. There's veteran free agents that are more readily available than normal times. So there could be options for Washington in the near future that might make this entire thing moot.
So Washington had 4 picks in the first 3 rounds, and they had 6 picks in the last 4 rounds. So they've got a lot of young guys coming into the building who they're gonna, give an opportunity to get onto the team. In the 4th round, we took John Bates, a tight end out of Boise State. 5th round, we took Derek Forrest, safety out of Cincinnati. Safety was another position where we definitely needed some depth. In the 6th round, we took a long snapper out of Michigan, Cameron Cheeseman. And then, yeah, yep. And then we had 3 picks in the 7th round. We took Will Bradley King, a defensive end out of Baylor, Shaka Toney, an edge rusher out of Penn State, and Dax Milne, I guess that's how you pronounce the last name, a wide receiver out of Brigham Young. So I'm guessing one of Zach Wilson's targets from last year. But yeah, so that's kind of your draft roundup. Let's talk a little bit about Aaron Rodgers and that situation. We alluded to it briefly earlier, talked about how Justin Fields may very well be the best quarterback in the NFC North come September. A lot of that really hinges on what happens with the Aaron Rodgers saga. Brett Favre came out today, and I'm getting tired of Brett Favre in the media talking about this and that and the other, but he feels pretty confident based on some text message exchanges I guess he's had with Aaron Rodgers and likening it to his own situation when he left the Packers. He's pretty confident that Aaron Rodgers is done. I don't know how you can compare the two. Those are completely different situations. Brett Favre brought it on himself by being a tease every offseason for 3 years. And finally they were like, we need to freaking let Aaron Rodgers show us what he's got, because we've had him sitting behind your ass for 3 years as you've just held us on the end of a string throughout the offseason. So, yeah, if you want to keep playing, you can find a new home. This is not that. This is Aaron Rodgers has a huge beef with the general manager. And to me, if Aaron Rodgers has a beef with your general manager, you fire the general manager yesterday. Why is there a debate about this? But the Packers have not done that. They have not indicated they are planning to do that, and so it's looking very much like Aaron Rodgers is done in Green Bay, if not with his NFL career.
Good for Aaron Rodgers. I think he understands the power that he has, and is using it. If you're in the NBA, and if anybody's tired of their team, they'd be like, get me out of here, and then he's gone. That really hadn't happened a whole lot in the NFL. But, if you're an Aaron Rodgers level player, if you've won league MVP multiple times, you've won the Super Bowl, you're almost certainly going to the Hall of Fame as soon as it's time for you to go. And if you don't want to play for that team anymore, you tell them, get me out of here, and they trade you. It seems so obvious to me now. If he doesn't want to play for the Packers anymore, he doesn't have to, and that's up to him.
We have never in the 100+ year history of the NFL seen an MVP play for a different team the year after their MVP season. We've twice seen a player not suit up for their team the next year. In both of those cases, the player retired. The most recent was Jim Brown.
The most recent was Jim Brown in, 1967?
Yeah, I think that's the right year. Yeah.
Oh, the Orioles have had at least 2 solo no-hitters since then. The other one was in 1969. But if Rodgers doesn't want to play for the Packers anymore, then he should leave. I mean, and they should trade him. There's no point keeping a guy that doesn't want to be on your team, particularly in this sport where it's so difficult, right? That'll just permeate and seep and fester throughout the locker room. That's not what you want. And besides, they drafted Jordan Love inexplicably. They drafted Jordan Love last year. They keep saying they're committed to Aaron Rodgers. No, you're not. You're not committed to Aaron Rodgers at all. That's crap. Packers general manager.
That's a good point. If Jordan Love is the starter, is Justin Fields the best in the NFC North?
Well, Jordan Love? Yeah.
The answer is yes.
I think the Packers think Jordan Love sucks because he didn't play at all.
So why did they draft him?
I don't know, but now they're stuck with this guy. They've made this bed completely,
now they
have to lie in it.
Yeah.
And if you're a Bears fan, or a Lions fan, or a Vikings fan, or a fan of any team, and your team hasn't had a good quarterback in the case of the Bears, decades, I don't know that you feel bad for the Packers having quarterback issues, right? All you've done is have Hall of Famers one after another, and now you decide you want to screw it up. Maybe give somebody else a turn to have a good quarterback in that division.
Yeah, I think there's a little bit of an overestimation of how much power Aaron Rodgers has here. The Packers can still hold on to him as long as they want. He's going to have to go to the mattresses to make this happen, which maybe he's willing to do, but
what does that mean?
It means he's going to have to go to war to make this happen. Either he's going to have to give up playing football and hand him a $30 million check back, or he's going to have to just make such a mess of the locker room that they have no choice to trade him. Is Aaron willing to do either of those things? I would say probably, yeah. I don't think he has any issue, being a bull in the china shop at Lambeau Field and just creating a big disaster to the point where it's like either get rid of me or deal with this havoc for all 5 months of the football season. But he's going to have to do that, I think, unless the Packers just feel like we don't want you anymore. And I think the Packers didn't want Aaron anymore last season when they drafted Jordan Love. Because despite the fact that Aaron was still a good player, he was not the player he was before that. He had a 3 or 4 year window where his numbers were declining. His performance was dipping towards something less than stellar. And so they made a stupid move, but a move to draft a replacement. Even though I think we all said Jordan Love can't play. He's not an NFL starter, let alone a franchise quarterback, but they made that decision. And so Aaron came out and had one of the best seasons of his career, became the MVP again, looked amazing. And now suddenly, oh, well, crap. Maybe we don't want to get rid of this guy. Well, too late. You already made the decision. You already signed the divorce papers effectively when you drafted Jordan Love. So either he's the guy or you got to pray that you can somehow convince Aaron to stay by him maybe not being as big of a dick as he could be getting out of town. But it doesn't seem like that's probable at this point. It seems like the Packers are going to hold off trading him until June 1st because of cap issues. They can save some money on the dead cap if they get rid of him then. But it certainly seems like he's out the door because Aaron doesn't have to stick around. I mean, what the hell do you think this whole Jeopardy thing was about? It was him flexing a little bit because he went out of his way to say, yeah, I'd love to do this, as an actual gig, even though he plays professional football. That's basically him saying, yeah, I can go make money doing something else. I don't need your bread. Get me the hell up out of here or you're going to regret it.
If the Packers want Aaron Rodgers so bad, they should cut Jordan Love then. Just cut him. Right?
I feel like
if they're so committed to Aaron Rodgers, right? If you're so committed, if you're that committed, prove it.
I feel like
the other guy.
I feel like Jordan Love's presence there is just a daily reminder of how much Aaron Rodgers hates the Packers. So you might have to consider getting rid of him. I mean, it's like constantly having the new girlfriend move in that you cheat on your wife with. I mean, it's like, really? Like, well, what is she still doing here? Get her the hell up out of here, or I'm gone. You're lucky I've even decided to stick around.
I don't even think that's strong enough. That's like divorcing your first wife, marrying your new wife, and then divorcing your second wife to go back to the first one.
Right? Or trying to, or at least trying to hold on to it, like we're some polygamous society going on here.
Oh my God.
But let's talk about options then, because if Aaron's out the door, where does he go?
Well, the thing is, he doesn't really have a lot of control over that because the Packers control him. So this past week it came out that he would really like to go to Denver, which I understand. They've got some really good weapons out there. They didn't end up getting a quarterback in this past draft, so they're still kind of stuck with Locke, I guess.
They got Teddy Bridgewater
and
sixth rounder.
Teddy Bridgewater, yeah. I mean, yeah. So, but I can still see. I mean, he would obviously beat out either of them for the starting quarterback job. And you've got some good targets out there, some good weapons. You got a really good tight end in Noah Fant, plus some really good young wide receivers who a lot of people haven't necessarily heard of because they haven't had quarterbacks who can really get the ball to them on a consistent basis, but nonetheless are really good. Not to mention, what is his name, who got hurt at the beginning of last year and missed the whole year with an ACL?
Sutton?
What was that, Evan?
Cortland Sutton?
Yeah, Cortland Sutton. So, yeah, it's but the bottom line is Aaron Rodgers can say he wants to go anywhere he wants. He doesn't get to choose. He's not in that position, unfortunately.
Well, does he have no trade clause?
I mean, even if he had a no trade clause, I'm pretty sure that you can request one because usually a no trade clause is in favor of the
same as a
quarterback.
Trade me right now clause.
A no trade clause means that he can nullify a trade that the Packers do. So he can basically say, you can trade me here, but not here. It's the same thing that Deshaun Watson had going for him, where he said, you can trade me here to Miami or to the Jets or wherever the hell he was considering going. That seems like it's not going to happen at this point.
Yeah, so I don't know. It's a good question.
I would assume he does, but I'm not obviously 100% sure. I don't want to see him go to the Broncos. I think that's a bad landing spot because while I think the Broncos would obviously be a lot better with him, that's not a Super Bowl contender. No way.
Well, he wants to go there so he can beat Patrick Mahomes twice a year.
That sounded made up as hell. That sounded like such crap.
I mean, I'm pretty sure that was Rich Eisen who said that, and Rich Eisen is generally a pretty, on top of his P's and Q's kind of journalist.
I'm not saying Rich Eisen made it up. I'm saying the guy that told Rich Eisen that made it up.
Yeah, maybe.
What about Aaron Rodgers with the Washington football team?
I would be pulling a lonely island over here.
Oh, jeez. There you go. Or I was talking about
appropriate on this show.
Yeah, well, there you go.
That's why I put it the way I did.
Yeah, that would be glorious, but I'm not anticipating that. There's also some talk about the Browns getting in on it, and
What?
yeah, which I think obviously if the Browns can get him, that would be a good move. But I'd feel awful.
Is he going to play defensive end too? They have plenty of those. Like, goodness gracious.
I mean, if they got Aaron Rodgers, they're the favorites to win the Super Bowl without a question. You know, that roster's stacked. But I would feel bad for Baker Mayfield because he would be the guy that had to turn his franchise into a palatable place for a player like Aaron Rodgers because the Browns are a trash heap organization, have been since they became the Browns after the original Browns left, and that team wasn't particularly good either until they went to Baltimore.
All of that only to get replaced.
Exactly. He had to come in and be the first overall pick for a team that went 0-16 after going 1-15. He had to spend the first 8 or 9 games of his career being coached by Hugh Jackson, and then another 16 being coached by Freddie Kitchens. Also, that they would actually hire somebody decent in Kevin Stefanski, who looks like a real deal coach, gets them to the playoffs, wins a playoff game, gets the team continues to improve itself because they say, "Hey, we can win now," and they say, "Yeah, but you're not going to be a part of it. We're going to ship you out of town. We're going to send you to Green Bay to go beat out Jordan Love for a job and be on a crappy team."
The only place colder and more miserable on the Great Lakes that has an NFL team, right? Like, there's already Cleveland.
Yep.
Just send you to Green Bay, right? There's dozens of people that live in Green Bay. At least Cleveland's kind of a big city.
Yeah.
All right, so let's move on to some baseball talk. Spent enough time on football. It's been a couple of weeks since we really got to talk much baseball. I'll briefly do a little stuff on the Yankees. Most of our listeners are not, they're from this area, from the DC area, and they're not really Yankees fans. So I'm not going to bore people with a bunch of stuff. But 2 weeks ago, I had a bit of a rant on my Yankees because I was frustrated with them. I was ready for us to get rid of everybody. And apparently that was just the kick in the butt that they needed because they are 7-3 over their last 10 games, which is tied for the best record in the AL. And only the Cardinals have a better record of the last 10 in all of baseball. They have climbed from 31st or 30th in team batting average to 25th, which
it's hard to be 31st out of 30. So
I guess it was 29th. 29th.
I mean, they weren't hitting at all, so they might have been 31st.
Yeah, so they're like 29th in batting average. They're up to 25th, but the overall batting average has grown from like 205 to 223, which, when you're talking about 14 days to try and undo what they'd done over the course of, 3 weeks roughly, that's pretty good. So they're hitting better. They're still number 2 in all of baseball in ERA at 3.0. Runs given up per 9 innings. They're just playing better. Aaron Judge is playing his ass off. His metrics early in the season were pretty good, but they weren't really showing in his batting average and some of his other mainstream stats. But he's hit 400 over the past week and change. His whiff rate this year is basically right at MLB average. So the whole, he just swings and misses and hits home runs. Well, he's not really hitting home runs at a rate that we saw back in 2017, but he's also not swinging and missing very much these days. Less than 25% of the time that he's swinging and missing. So I've been impressed with his growth as a hitter, just an overall hitter. Corey Kluber seems to be kind of figuring things out a little bit, which is good to see. Domingo Germán has not been pitching well, which is fine for me because I really couldn't care less, and I kind of want him out of here. Garrett Cole has been amazing. It's been interesting since the beginning of the season. There have been more than 1,000 more strikeouts than base hits across Major League Baseball. Can you believe that?
Wow. More
More than 1,000 more strikeouts than base hits across Major League Baseball just since the season started. That's crazy. Gleyber Torres' defense has been better than it was when we last ranted about him. Still not great, but good enough that we can kind of
be great.
But good enough that we can ignore it for now. Yesterday was the beginning of a series against the Houston Astros, and the booing was glorious to hear. There was one play that was really wicked to watch. The Yankees got a hit into the outfield with bases loaded, and 2 runs came in pretty quickly. And then for some reason, as the ball was coming in, we decided to send Rougned Odor from third to home anyway. And he had a collision with Maldonado at home plate. And he's now on the IL with a sprained knee. It looked like it could have been a lot worse. The way he was grabbing at it, the way that it kind of twisted, looked like he could have torn a ligament or something. As of right now, it's looking like just a sprain. But he also got Maldonado pretty good in the head. Lucky for Maldonado, he had his mask on still, but he was laying there in pain for a while. But yeah, Altuve, fans let him have it, which is great. And then Eric, you sent something earlier. I think was it Carlos Correa? Is that right? Who was complaining about it?
I think that might have been satire, but
what was it?
I think so. It was believable enough for me. I also tend to believe a lot of things, like when Evan sends fake stuff from the Orioles saying that they signed Joey Rickard to 7-year contract. So
7 years.
So maybe don't trust whatever I put on there as anything that's 100% true. But I do believe that was satire. But I mean, it is kind of in line with what the Astros how they've handled being cheaters, where they've kind of acted like, "Why are you guys mad at us? We didn't do anything wrong."
It absolutely is.
Like they're the victims when they're sitting there, cheating for 3+ years, win a World Series, get caught, and then act like, "Oh, we didn't do nothing wrong."
The big thing for the Yankees, though, is that they're finally back up. They're above 500. They're 15-14. They're on a 4-game winning streak. They're in second place in the AL East, virtually tied with the Rays. 1 less win, 1 less loss. So that's good. We're turning the corner a little bit, and we're putting ourselves back in the position where we need to be in. Boston continues to win. They're only a game behind us over the past 10, and they're 2.5 ahead of us overall, and they got a run differential 6 better than we have. So, I asked you a couple weeks ago, Eric, if this was all fake news from the Red Sox, and you seemed to lean toward yes, and I was hoping you were right. For now, that doesn't seem to be the case, but we'll see. They can certainly still fall apart. But let's talk about your guys' Orioles. They're a game below 500, but they've been pretty hot lately. They split a 4-game series with the Yankees, and then they've won their last 2 series. They won 2 of 3 in Oakland, and after today's no-hitter by John Means, they've taken 2 of 3 in Seattle.
Yeah, winning 6 out of 10. This is completely en fuego for the Orioles. 6 out of 10? Are you kidding me? This is amazing. People didn't think they were going to win 6 out of 60 games last year. So, winning series or splitting series with better teams, this is how you contend. You're just consistently just good, right? You don't go in these stretches where you lose 6 straight and 8 straight and all this kind of stuff. The pitching, as evidenced by John Means' no-hitter today, the pitching has been pretty good. Some of the guys starting pitchers are bums, and they know it. Like Jorge Lopez, who just throws meatballs all the time. Dean Kramer's kind of had a rough start. But, he's, had like 10 starts in major leagues or something like that? it's not always going to be peaches and rainbows all the time. So, I do want to see a little more about from the starting pitchers who aren't named John Means. Matt Harvey's been a surprise. Like, really? This guy rose from the dead. Like, he sucked for 5 years. Like, ever since Game 5 of the 2015 World Series, he hasn't been any good. He hadn't. So he's bounced around.
So what you're saying is that the Dark Knight rises.
I don't want to say the Dark Knight rises just yet because it's still early, but the Dark Knight is, waking up. Let's see. The hitting has been poor at best. This team has gotten to its current record on the back of its okay pitching staff. The hitting has been terrible. They lost last night because they couldn't hit with runners in scoring position at all. It was probably a winnable game. I didn't stay up and watch any of it. I was tired. The hitting needs to improve, and the defense. Chance Sisco is just brutal, man. Right? Chance Sisco is supposed to be a bat first catcher. He can't hit at all, and he's still a bat first catcher. Just think about that for a second.
Yeah,
right?
On the offensive side, one of the interesting things I noticed is that where the Yankees are currently 25th in batting average and the Orioles are 20th, if you look at on-base percentage, the Yankees are 8th and the Orioles are 28th. So going the complete opposite direction. So the Yankees are at least, they're drawing walks and also hit by pitches. The Orioles are not doing that. And that's
team swings at everything.
Yeah.
Just throw it in the same zip code as home plate. Swing! Like, what are you doing? Swing at balls in the zone. So yeah. And then our closer, Cesar Valdez. I don't know where the Orioles found this guy. Like, he tops out, like, his fastball's like 82 or something. And then he throws his changeup at 75.
Does he have a good curveball or slider?
No, he's got his changeup.
He's got a funky style of pitching that seems to be, at least for now, effective enough that he can actually get outs in the high leverage
situation. Leading the league in saves?
I think he is.
What is happening?
I watched him pitch, and I'm just like,
how fast is his changeup?
He's 75.
So it's not even really that big of a difference from his fastball.
It's the movement.
It's got a lot of movement.
Does it? Okay.
Yeah, it's like a knuckleball with the movement.
Does he throw is it like a 3-finger changeup or a circle change or something?
I haven't been inside his glove. I haven't seen his grips, but
gotcha.
And it's more so, I think, also.
I mean, you can usually tell by the movement what kind of a changeup it is.
Yeah, he kind of flails, like he flops off the mound, and the delivery is so strange. Like he just kind of goes, just kind of falls off, and it seems to be deceptive enough to be effective. It's just like this. I don't know how long it can last. I think eventually teams are going to figure it out, but yeah, it's been entertaining. At least definitely better than cold salsa.
Oh, God, Cole Sulser. The Orioles would have made the playoffs last year if it wasn't for Cole Sulser. That guy blew at least 4 games against the Blue Jays, who did go to the playoffs. Like, the Orioles are right there in the mix for the postseason. Cesar Valdez has been incredible. I think he's from the Mexican League or somewhere. Like, the dead fish changeup just flops across the plate. And these batters who have, been hitting a baseball for their entire life just suddenly have noodles for legs and can't hit the ball. It's amazing. Oh man, the Orioles are at least fun to watch. They're not a great team. They're not even a good team, but they're kind of a fun team.
Well, the interesting thing with baseball right now is if you look at the American League East, it's in some ways the best division in baseball. I mean, certainly at the top end, you've got almost every division has somebody better than the American League does at the top end, with the exception being the Central, the AL Central, and the NL East. But every team is within a game of 500. No other team can say that. It's the only division in baseball where every team is at least 500 over the last 10 games. And it's the only division in baseball where nobody has a run differential worse than -9 for the year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a competitive division, and they've played a lot of intra-division games early in the year. In fact, the Orioles are getting set to play another intra-division series starting Friday against the Red Sox.
No, Red Sox again.
Yeah, that's like the third series against them.
I mean, they've already played half the games against each other.
All right, so you won't have to see them for a while, which will be a relief.
One would hope.
Yeah, one would hope. Yeah, I'm just really excited about this Orioles team. The minor league season started up last night. I did watch a little of that. DL Hall absolutely dealt last night. I think he got like
10 strikeouts. I think it was 10 and 4 and a third. Yeah, it was 10 and 4 and a third, I think.
Yeah, just insane. Adley Rutschman was catching them. Anybody who's listened to this podcast for more than 5 minutes knows about Adley Rutschman. Corey's making a face.
Yeah, I just saw a Giants hitter. A Giants hitter just fouled a 99-mile-an-hour pass ball right off his oblique.
You fouled a ball off of his oblique?
Yeah. Oh, never mind. It came inside. It got the inside of his knee. I thought it was like his oblique. Couldn't tell from the first angle.
Guess there's worse place to be hit with a baseball, but still, that sounds unpleasant.
Yeah. Anyway, but how did Adley Rutschman play offensively? How did he hit?
I think he went 0 for 4. But it was.
But he caught well.
Yeah.
So that.
He's already a better catcher than Chance Sisco and Pedro Severino put together.
if he was behind the plate today, John Means would have had a perfect game. So
yeah,
there you go. Because I watched the clip of the wild pitch strike 3 on the one guy that reached base. Pedro Severino didn't even get into a position to block the ball. He let it go right through the 5-hole.
Oh,
unbelievable! It was not like it was some just impossible to block pitch. He didn't even get down into a blocking position. He just stayed in a crouch and tried to scoop it.
Oh no! You have to be an athlete.
Yes, he was not being an athlete. It was egregious.
Yeah, you have to move your butt. Let's go.
I'm just really glad that didn't happen. In the 8th or the 9th inning. It happened early enough so that the chance of a perfect game was out of the way. But now in hindsight, it's just like, come on, man. Like the Mariners never even came close to getting a hit. Like they couldn't do anything with John Means today.
Why is it always the Mariners that get no note?
Because the Mariners suck. I was thinking about this because if Means had thrown a perfect game, this would have been the third perfect game out of 4 that happened at Safeco Field.
Yeah. 2
against the Mariners, 1 for the Mariners. Felix threw the last one back in 2012 against the Rays, but that game could have easily not been a perfect game because the Mariners only scored 1 run and it was on an error.
Yeah, I mean, it could have been a loss.
Yeah,
right? They might have lost that game. Just just a little roller gets through somebody's legs, or Felix throws a meatball and goes over the fence. That's baseball.
Well, quick update on the fantasy stuff. I'm 3-0. Eric and Evan are 2-1. We are the top 3 teams in the power rankings this past week. Corey Fronton is also 2-1. So is Andrew Perez, friend of the show. Sam Martin is 1-2, and then Alex Mayo and Sean Kennedy to get their act together. They're 0-3. And,
dear.
Yeah, Sean. I think last week was the first time that Sean actually used up all of his available pitcher starts.
Okay.
Sean's been a little busy.
He has been a little bit busy.
He's getting married, so
yes.
I understand him being a little bit off his game as far as setting his lineup and maximizing his
especially
guys.
For a sport that he doesn't really follow that closely as it is.
Well, whose fault is that?
I mean, it's his.
Baseball we love baseball, right?
There you go.
That's the standard position of this show.
Yeah.
Everybody out there, go watch baseball.
So
we definitely discuss it disproportionately compared to other sports media.
Yeah.
I think that's about it for the show. It's everything that's on our show notes. Any other things you guys want to discuss or shout outs you guys want to make?
The Ravens signed Alejandro Villanueva, I think, yesterday. Offensive lineman to replace. He was going to play right tackle, replace Orlando Brown Jr. So, the Offensive line at least is going to look good getting off the bus. To be honest, that's half the game. Just getting off the bus.
Well, congratulations on signing a MAGA for your right tackle. That's great news.
Well, our boy Big Country is a MAGA guy, too.
I'm sure he is, but shout out to the Washington Capitals, who started their game today against the Rangers, and 3 out of the 5 players on the ice got into fights on the initial puck drop because of some of the carnage from a game that happened a couple nights ago.
Oh, my goodness.
And then, and the Capitals won all 3 of the fights. And then they decided to try to fight Tom Wilson, who was the instigator of the brouhaha last time, and he won the fight. So 4-0 for the Capitals in fights tonight so far. We'll see.
Do they get goals for that?
No, but it's nice to win fights.
Are they points in the standings, whatever points means?
No.
Do they actually track won fights as a stat on NHL.com?
I don't think so. They fight.
Well, then
they track.
What
they
are
track
we doing
fights.
here?
They track fights. Well, it's not like you have a judging panel to determine who won the fight. It's
That's
generally
whoever
just,
hit the ice first lost. No judgment needed.
I mean, whatever.
Also, how do you fight somebody while you're both standing on ice? That seems like as you try to swing to punch, you would
usually
twirl yourself.
You have to grab the other guy by the collar as you punch them.
Yeah, it's pretty much just one of those type of things. The guy with the longer arms and the more ferocious attitude typically comes out on top.
Yeah.
Okay.
Unless that person also just loses his balance. All right. No real shout-outs from me.
I have another one. Shout out to our listener James Daly, who crushed it in his mock draft last week. Oh, jeez. No, I don't want to back up WhatsApp. Please go away. This is a new very sent to me.
Shout out to James Daly.
He picked more picks right than Mel Kiper and Todd McShay and Dan Jeremiah and
and us.
People who and us. No doubt.
Yeah. Although Eric did a pretty darn good job live. I mean, he was on it for those first 6, 7, 8 picks in the moment. He just kind of had his finger on the pulse.
And then the Broncos inexplicably passed on Justin Fields, and I'm just like, I don't know anymore. I don't know what's going to happen. We've lost the plot.
They got Surtain, who I think's a great player, but they need a quarterback.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Be sure to follow our show on Twitter at Sportsballers18. You can follow us individually at Corey Puffett, at Quagmire67, and at Evan_Ash13. Email us mailbag questions. The sportsballers@gmail.com is our email address. We don't get a lot of mailbag stuff during the football off season, but any kind of sports related topic, it doesn't even have to be strictly sports, but anything that remotely has to do with sports that you'd like to hear our opinions on, send them to us. You can send them to the email. You can send them to us on Twitter. Whichever one is a good way to reach us. We're on those pretty consistently, pretty constantly. Be sure to subscribe if you've listened this far. Hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review if you're listening on Apple Podcasts. I don't know if the other podcast sources allow you to leave reviews, but if they do, Spotify, Google, Amazon, all that, be sure to do so. Leave some comments on the YouTube video if you're listening on there. Get vaccinated when it's your turn. I know some people have certain health risks, and so their doctors are telling them to wait. Totally understandable. But if that's not you, if you don't have health risks that preclude you from getting it, get vaccinated. It protects the people who can't get it yet. It protects the people who are a little more nervous about it, understandably or not understandably on that front. I got my second dose.
Understandably.
I got my second dose the other day. Had some chills that night. Didn't get a lot of sleep. Had a mild fever the next day that was gone by the end of the day. And I'm, feeling 100% now. And in less than 2 weeks, I'll be 95% protected. I mean, it's not exactly how that works, but there's a 95% chance that I will be fully protected at that point. I know, Eric, you're about to get your second dose. Evan, you'll be getting your second dose soon. So,
next week. I can't wait. I've never been so excited to get something sharp stuck in the side of my arm.
I felt the first one more than I felt the second one as far as the needle going in. So, It's not even really that big a deal. And I'm looking forward to Eric and me finally being able to be in the same room for the podcast again pretty soon. And, Evan, whenever you're in town, being able to be in person with us for the podcast, I'm really excited for that. But
remember these things called airplanes? Remember when people used to travel on those? I might have to get in one of those loud rocket tube things and pay y'all a visit.
So, just continue pushing forward to the end of this pandemic. The more people that get vaccinated, the faster that we can get to the end, and the more likely we actually will reach an end. The less likely that we'll see mutations that are completely, just outside the realm of what the vaccine prevents. But I digress. Thank you all so much for tuning in this week. We really appreciate everybody who listened last week and joined us, and those of you who listened to this week's show. Look forward to just continuing to bring you guys more content as we go forward. Pretty soon we'll start talking a little bit about the NFL draft and how it maybe relates to fantasy football, maybe even take a kind of a division by division approach on that front. But in the meantime, thank you guys for listening to episode 142. We'll be back next week with another episode of the Sportsballers podcast.